Good afternoon. This is Franz at Kleinshire. It's a rainy Saturday afternoon and we are 20 degrees warmer than we've been recently. It's supposed to get up to 57 degrees today. Well, that warm weather comes with thunderstorms and it's already drizzling, so what to do on a day like today? Well, I have something a little bit different today. I wanted to talk about one more thing we grow here on the farm and show you all the different ways that we use it. Every year for the last 3 years now, I've had the older boys take stewardship of a pretty significant patch of field corn. And I've given this as a way for them to earn an allowance. Basically, the primary consumer of the corn is our pigs, because we're trying to raise our pork without breaking the bank. And something that anybody who has tried raising their own pork knows is you have to have a feed source. You can't just go to the feed store and buy pre-mixed grain, or you're going to end up with your home-raised pigs costing as much as it would cost to buy pork in the grocery store. Which is already butchered and in your nice cuts and all ready to use. So what to do? Well, the boys have done a great job producing corn for us. They plant it, they hoe it, and they harvest it. And really, it's become one of the sources for our pigs, at least through the fall. Here we are in the pole barn, and the littler boys and I are going to take some of the corn that we saved back. We've got 2 bushels of it here. This has been in the rack we use for garlic. And we're going to run it through the corn sheller, the antique corn sheller that we have. So take a look. Okay, go ahead. Look at this. Look at this. There we go. All right, let's do it again. What are you working on today?
Starting seeds.
Uh-huh. And what do you have started so far?
So today I am doing herbs.
Uh-huh.
So I have lavender, oregano, sweet basil,
Look at that organization.
coriander, sage, thyme, anise, parsley, savory.
This is where our videos become a cooking show, I guess, since today we're showing the many uses of corn. So here we have the professional chef of the house with her assistant. And
yes.
we're going to talk about making cornbread with our own corn and really our own wheat flour as well. So what do you have there, Rose?
This is our field corn, which the boys grew last year. And yesterday, you and I shucked this with the corn shucker, the hand crank one. And then what I did was put it in our Vitamix to make cornmeal.
Yeah, look at the
That's
texture of
That's
that.
our cornmeal.
Just like the stuff you buy in the store.
Next, took our sprouted wheat berries that we cleaned and ground them.
And that's our own wheat too, obviously. We
It's
showed
a
that
dark.
differently.
It's darker than it sometimes.
Very dark. It's sprouted basically.
Yes, it's sprouted.
So it's a little bit different in texture, a lot heavier than flour would be from the store. But it works
Denser.
very well for something like this.
And then when we have it for us, I like to put a little sweetener in the cornbread. When we have it, I would put maple syrup, but we haven't made our maple syrup yet, so I use organic sugar.
We have 2 gallons of sap. It's coming.
It's coming. And then here, for we use our lard for the oil.
This is our own. We render the pork fat in the crock pot, and then this stores for several months in the basement.
In the right temperature. And then this is goat milk. Sometimes I also will use goat kefir because it's tangier. And sometimes we like that because a lot of time cornbread they'll ask actually for like a buttermilk. So we use goat kefir or goat milk. So that's that, and then our own chicken eggs. Chicken eggs. Yeah. And that will be like with your baking powder and salt. That's mixed up together and baked in the oven in a cast iron skillet.
Yeah. And this is left over from last night. Rosemary made a really nice dish with halibut and salmon, wild caught in Alaska by her sister and her husband. We trade meat for that. And that with cornbread and tartar sauce was absolutely delicious. I steal a little bit here and then in order to make some mash. Now, what is mash exactly? Well, mash can be very useful. It can be fermented and then distilled. You can see I have this corn wet and it's starting to germinate. You have some sprouting going on there. This is something that I'm doing in order to soften the corn because I am about to do a little grinding of it, add some hot sugar water, and close it up and let it do its thing. Well, what do we have in here after a few weeks of fermentation? Corn, sugar, and a little wine yeast. The smell there is sweet, a little bit like wine. This is ready. A little later on, I will go ahead and add more sugar water and more yeast to that because the mash can be reused. What I have here, though, is in the still and ready to go. I have my little setup here. This was a Christmas present from Rosemary a few years ago, and I am going to get this lit now. The goal here is to get the temperature to boiling. Still has a thermometer, and I can raise the heat for now, but when it gets to about 150 degrees, I'm going to want to slow it down because you don't want it boiling over. Basically, what happens is the steam from the mash rises through this copper pipe. I'm going to be turning on the water here, and it's going to go through the coil. It's going to be cooling as it passes through the constantly circulating cold water. And it's going to be coming out here drip by drip by drip as it condenses because it is cooled. I've turned on the water, and the trick is to have it on not too hard because I don't want it overflowing, but just high enough that it can escape through this hose. It's going to take a while for it to rise to about 189 degrees, 190 degrees, somewhere in that range. With the alcohol in there, the boiling temperature of the mash is a little lower than water temperature, which boils at 212 degrees. In fact, one of the ways you know that you've distilled most of the alcohol out of the mash is that the boiling temperature of the mash changes, and you find yourself having to raise the heat in order to keep it boiling inside. This is a process that takes the better part of the afternoon. It will be several hours before all the goodness is distilled out of this mash. Let's see what the temperature's at and how we're doing here. All looks good. Yeah, what are we at? 125 degrees or so. Guess we'll go back to shelling corn for a while. All right, ready? You think this is enough for Mommy?
Yes.
We're going to be able to have cornbread all through to the next corn harvest?
Yes.
Good. What about these? What are these down here? Still plenty of corn on those.
Those are for the pigs.
That's right. In whiskey, the amount that evaporates every year is called the angel's share. We're going to call the corn on these cobs the pig's share. Well, right on schedule. We are at about 191 degrees, it looks like, and we have some drippage. There we go. That's about what you want to see. Now, you may have noticed that I have what is dripping into a LaChoy water chestnuts container. There's a reason for this. I'm going to toss this. This is what's called the 4 shots. And when you hear of moonshine blinding people and things like that, well, there are different things that they did. Sometimes the unscrupulous moonshiners would add things to their moonshine to make it stretch, to give it a bite, like kerosene, I think. But the other thing is, if you do this wrong, if you include the 4 shots, you end up including a lot of methanol and other things which can blind you and do serious damage. So this is not drinkable. This is not to be kept at all, but rather this is going to be discarded. After the heads come the hearts, and then the last fraction is called the tails. The most desirable, the sweetest and the best tasting moonshine is found in the hearts. But I tend to mix the heads, at least a good portion of the heads, and also a portion of the tails, which have a bit of a flavor, something that adds a little more character in, with the hearts to come up with my final product. So this is a process, and the one thing you definitely don't want to consume is the 4 shots. Those get tossed. I think it's important to take a taste now and again, make sure I'm getting my fractions right. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. Not too bad. It's smooth. It bites. It definitely bites more than aged whiskey would, but it is not a bad flavor at all. It's amazing what a little corn and sugar and yeast and a little elbow grease can do. This is really nice. By the way, if you think you've seen anything illegal in today's video, I have no comment for you. Looks a lot like water to me. I think the Indians may have called it fire water, but it looks like water to me. I'm not sure what to make of archaic laws like the federal prohibition on distilling. That's an archaic remnants of the post-prohibition era, and really the only reason that there are any laws in the book have to do with the deals that were made in order for the government to have some modicum of control over alcohol after the repeal of prohibition. So again, I'm not sure what you've seen here today. I don't think it's illegal to make corn mash or to put it in a still or to drink something that looks very much like water. You know, as I sit here this afternoon and I have my book. Michael O'Brien is an amazing author, by the way. Strangers and Sojourners is just a beautiful example of what you can do with imagery and wordplay and storytelling. I can't recommend it enough. But as I sit here and I reflect and I enjoy a quiet but rainy Saturday afternoon, I'm thinking about why I do stuff like this. I could go to the store and buy this. You can buy whiskey for a pretty cheap price compared to the work that goes into actually producing it yourself. And this doesn't even involve, by the way, the aging process, which I have done with some of the stuff I made last year. Why do it? Why go through the trouble? And I must say that for me, a big thing as I enter middle age is learning new things. And a big part of diving into farming and homesteading has been learning the way that things work. Everything from the way that plants grow, the way you respond to diseases and weed pressure and all the challenges that come with that and making a living off of it, to the production of something like this has been a true education for me. It's something that I enjoy very much. Time to make some pigs happy. Can you do it?
you're breaking the bushy basket. There you go. Good job. Mmm. There she comes. Now she's getting excited. Look at that.
I think Lana picked my last one.
Yeah.
No more pigs. No more pigs.
Just two.